Namaste, welcome, hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in. If you're new, I welcome you to this chat that I have with with everyone out there, with the universe, with anyone who cares to listen. Maybe it's with myself. Yeah, very welcome, very welcome. Thank you to anyone who subscribes. I really appreciate every single one of you, because when we have something to share, we don't want to be talking to a brick wall. It's just nice to know that people actually are interested, and that it's worth my time and effort to make these videos. So please do subscribe or like or comment if you enjoy the content. So today I want to make a video just to kind of catch up. I literally haven't made one since March. I usually make one every month. I feel like I've kind of dropped out of reality in a way. I dropped off my timeline that I was on, and all sorts of things have been going on. I feel like I've aged about 10 years sometimes in the last few months. It's just been really tough. Now I'm not going to go into the details of it so much because nothing dramatic has happened. I haven't got like terrible news to share with you guys. I think I'm just feeling what many people in the collective are feeling right now, which is a combination of confusion, exhaustion. I feel like a lot of changes are going on within me. Not so much in my outer world, but definitely within my core, within my being. And it's confusing, and I've been questioning a lot of my own belief systems. So I want to speak to that today. I want to use my lived experience of the last few months to highlight what I think might be an issue for many of us at this stage in our collective journeys. So I'm going to call this video Evolving is Dissolving, which is sort of a little catchy way of phrasing this idea that as we're growing into the next version of ourselves, expanding our awareness and changing maybe the way we do things, we have to dissolve things that no longer fit with the new belief systems or fit with the new vibrational frequency that we're emitting. If we go up in frequency, in other words, our beingness contains more light and more love, which is you could say the yardstick or the measure of your emotional frequency. So if that frequency goes up, you're going to find that things around you will shift and change. But at the same time, it's not always comfortable. It's not like you just move into the next level and it's better than the previous level. Once things settle, I do believe it is a better place to be, and the higher the frequency, the more pleasant our experiences. But to get there, we often have to go through yet another dark night of the soul, or at least if it's not a full dark night of the soul, like some psychological crisis or black hole of despair, it might be just a very uncomfortable time as either things disintegrate or dissolve in your outer world, so relationships start to fall apart or conflicts happen, or maybe it's in your job where you're just increasingly uncomfortable and things are going wrong. Might be the house where you're living in. I mean, it can literally manifest as, broken equipment and faulty leaking from the roof and foundations getting flooded, or, things falling apart. It can literally manifest like that. So that might be happening for you, an external dissolving and disintegrating. Or it could be an internal dissolving and disintegrating, which is more where your belief systems are falling apart and you are questioning everything and you don't know what to believe. And maybe certain things that you had been very comfortable in believing now don't seem true, and you might even completely flip your views. So an internal or an external presentation, or both, and it's much like this world is much like a dream, where whatever is contained within our hearts and our minds is projected. It's kind of like a mirror that we're experiencing here, a mirrored representation of what's in our deepest core. So it could be that both of those things are going on for you at the same time. For me, I'll speak, I guess, about just a very short version of where I've been over the last few years, because I believe these things come in cycles, and that's why I want to just quickly go back to my history, where in 2010, if anyone's been following my material, you'll know that I had a total breakdown, it was a psychotic breakdown. It was called psychosis. By psychiatry. It was, for me, an altered state of consciousness that was very disturbing, very distressing, brought up a lot of deeply hidden, unconscious fears and kind of, you could say, inner demons within myself that I had to face. And I had to, first of all, during that process, I had to see what the belief systems were that I'd been carrying for years, and I wasn't even aware of them at the time. And that's the incredible thing about the psyche, about the conscious versus the unconscious, is that consciously we think we understand ourselves, but when we look in the basement of the psyche as such, when we go down there, it feels like you're going down, to find out what's in there, there can be a whole lot of stuff that you just didn't see. There will, in fact, be. There absolutely will be. So psychosis was a beautiful opportunity for me, because I expanded my awareness spontaneously, mind you, and all of a sudden I could see all these beliefs, I could see all these fears, and they presented as kind of it was a fantastical landscape I was living in, with hearing voices of beings and being very needing to make a lot of art. I actually read The Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross during that time, so I was like immersing myself in epic, intense literature to try to understand what was happening for me. And the book The Dark Night of the Soul did certainly address this idea that one loses everything in the midst of these psychological crises or turning points, and feels at the time utterly alone and abandoned by the universe, and questions everything. It's a very, it can sort of drive a person crazy. It's a very distressing and disturbing time to go through psychologically, but it yields the most incredible magic, because stripped back of all of those old programs, those egoic stories and patterns of behavior that we just unconsciously operate with, when those things are stripped back, we're left with the core essence of who we are, which is pure love, pure light, pure wisdom, pure power, pure divine consciousness. And so, depending on the intensity of the experience, you might not, pop out like a Buddha, fully sort of enlightened and aware of how magnificent you are, but you will certainly have shedded a layer, and you will gain a lot more clarity about who you are, your role in the world, and you'll feel a lot more grounded and centered in your experience. A kind of a knowing that you're connected to source energy, and you can never truly be alone. So it's ironic that in those dark nights of the soul, one has nothing to grab onto except for divine consciousness, except for the spark of the divine creator, or as I call it, Great Spirit. The Great Spirit, which is Nkulu Nkulu in the Zulu language, meaning the greatest of the great. And this is who we are. We are that. That's another word for it is the monadic structure, the monadic source point that we all come from. I just call it Great Spirit. So one finds one's way to Great Spirit in these dark times and sheds all the stuff that you don't need. It's a process. Another metaphor that's very commonly used is the caterpillar incubating in the cocoon and becoming the butterfly. So with that in mind, in 2010 I went through that. It did take a number of years before I achieved the clarity and the wisdom and the power and unconditional love for myself to the point where I am now. But I had to essentially strip away what I didn't need and then kind of rebuild myself, rebuild an ego. I would honestly say rebuilding an ego is what I did, because we do need an ego. An ego is not a bad thing. I don't see it as a bad thing. I just see it as the personality construct, which is the vehicle that we operate with while we walk through this world. Much like a body, we need a body to operate with. So the ego is the mental and emotional, psychological body that we walk around with. And, you know, that's what I reconstructed. I feel like it shattered through psychosis, and then I patched it up. And I did a really good job of rebuilding something into a better version, you know, and I was assisted, of course. So much help, so much therapy and books that I read, and not to mention guidance, inner guidance, my higher self, wisdom. And so that's been my journey over the last 12 years. Interesting to note that it's 12, because that's a powerful cyclical number. So I constructed a new ego for myself, but what's been going on for me this year, in the beginning of a new 12-year cycle, is that I'm calling into question again those very beliefs that I have painstakingly put together as my understanding of what's going on in the world and how to operate in the world. So I'm sensing another dissolving or devolution is taking place psychologically for me, which this time I trust. Okay, that's the first thing to say, is I really trust this process now. I understand why we need to do it, because ego always thinks it's right and true. And you know, I must admit, I feel like I have actually been making that mistake in the last few years, is really getting attached to my beliefs around things such as, and you'll hear me speak about these things often, but one of them is the paradigm of the ascension that the planet is going through and the people are going through too, all beings on planet Gaia. And I speak with authority when I say that, but at the same time, what's being called into question at the moment is that very belief for me. Now, I'm not going to chuck the baby out with the bathwater, right? I know that there is a lot of that is true. Like when I say no, I'm separating here an intellectual knowing from what I call spirit gnosis, right? A deep inner knowing, a knowing in your bones, an intuitive knowing. This is the human truth radar that we are all born with. It's connected very strongly to the heart. So the heart, you know, can often tell us what is true, and it doesn't necessarily tell us in words. It doesn't give us a big fancy story explanation as to why that's true and how it all works. It just says yes, or it says nuh-uh, or maybe it says yeah, it's somewhat true but not quite there. Okay, so I counsel always to hold your beliefs very lightly, right? Like just lightly in your hands. Don't grasp them. Don't think that they are the absolute. And I make this mistake as well. You know, I know when I speak with authority, it probably sounds like I'm holding on to my beliefs and I really firmly believe this. But I am very aware, and I always have been, that as human beings, we come here deliberately to be forgetting our full knowledge, right? We squeeze our amazing divine creator consciousness into this vehicle of a body and an ego, and in doing so we're so limited in our understanding. And then we try to create explanations for things using the limited languages that we operate with on the earth. And it's as futile really as trying to describe the miracle of that is an apple using words. If I was to try to explain the beauty, the texture, the way it grows, how it tastes, what it does in the body, all of those things, if I was to explain that in words, it's going to sound as dry as a textbook, and it will not get anywhere near close enough to the reality that is the miracle of an apple and what it tastes like and how amazing it is. And each of us has to experience that for ourselves. We cannot impart that to somebody else. So here we all are, sort of fumbling around in the psychic darkness, if you like, trying to explain miracles and very vast, complex, you could say divine operations. We're trying to explain them with the super limited capacity of mind and language. So I am aware of that, and I always have been. And then there's also the fact that I went through that psychosis, and it really taught me that it actually taught me this simple truth, which I wrote down faithfully on a piece of paper, scrawled, which says, know nothing, trust everything. Know nothing and trust everything. So in the middle of the psychosis, this wisdom came to me. I shared it with my husband, I remember at the time, and he was like, yeah, that's deep, right? And I still stand by it. I think it's really beautiful. In other words, know nothing. So always assume that your beliefs could be incorrect, that they're very limited, and that there's something else. There's a higher truth, a bigger truth. So that's, I think, what I meant by know nothing. And then trust everything is this idea that the universe is benevolent, that any dark processes, anything that seems wrong or we want to judge that it shouldn't be there, is in fact part of the great divine benevolence that is unfolding at all times. And I know that's really hard for people to grasp, because the ego part of ourselves is literally wired to reject suffering and seek pleasure, reject pain, seek pleasure. That's its modus operandi. But it's one of those deep truths that I know to be in my heart. And once I began to see the world through that lens, I noticed that everything that happens, I can always see from a higher perspective its benefit. Always, like without fail. It is about a perspective, this idea of trusting everything. And you have to get elevated above the sort of everyday nitty-gritty and above the physical pain and discomfort and the mental and emotional pain and discomfort. You have to be able to rise above that whilst going through it at the same time. Right? This is multidimensionality. This is the ability to be in many dimensions at once, the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and to look down at yourself and realize, oh, that's what this suffering is for. Now, very recently I went through a great example of this, which was I had the flu, which a lot of people on the planet are contracting viruses right now, right? So this might be a story you relate to as well. I got the flu, and I hadn't had the flu for like 20 years. I'm super resilient when it comes to this kind of thing. Normally, I just get a little sniffle and I'm done. You take my natural medicines and I'm done. But this time it hit me hard. My immune system was already stuffed from a road trip we took, and anyway, suffice to say, I spent 2 days lying in bed, so sick that I couldn't distract myself at all. I couldn't read, I couldn't listen to music. I could just lie there in abject misery, feeling really, really sorry for myself because I don't like being sick and I'm not good with physical discomfort like that. It actually sends me a little bit crazy. I get really depressed. And anyway, so in this state, I'm lying there and I'm assessing this whole year. And I realize, because I now have so much time to lie there and think about it, I become aware of the unconscious discomfort that I've been feeling all year, of the way that things are not great like they were last year or the year before. I've had a really beautiful few years of being in a lot of bliss states and receiving a lot of constant guidance and synchronicities and flow. So I realized that this year, this is changing for me. And so I spent that 2 days trying to work out why and understand, what does this mean for me? Is there something I should be changing? A lot of mental arguing with myself, you might say. Now, this story is multi-layered because the first point I want to make is that trust everything. There is a gift, okay? Gift in everything. So 2 days of awful flu, my go-to immediately was, what is the gift of this? This is how automatic this belief has become for me now. This perspective has become. I go there as soon as I'm able to. I quite often, spend some time drowning in my misery, and then I just climb up, metaphorically, to find this perspective. What is the gift? And I realized, wow, A, I really needed to rest. I've just been really run down. But B, I needed to see all of this. I needed to see these doubts and these fears about what I'm doing this year. And it went deeper than that. It was doubts and fears about everything that I'm doing, like the path that I'm on and the choices I'm making. And it was like taking a snow globe of my beliefs and just turning it upside down and giving it a really good shake. That's what I did while I was sick. And beautiful, beautiful process, very cleansing, very purging of the negative thoughts. Now it was a not such a fun process. It took a good week before I was able to really surrender to it and just go, okay, you know what? I don't know everything, and my mind is just going to have to let this go for the moment. And so the conclusion that I kind of came to, as a combination of the higher perspectives, my mind and my heart, was that I'm in the process of evolving again. I know what this is. I remember this. I remember that when you're evolving, you go through a period of discomfort. You go through a period of feeling like nothing you believe is true, or the things that really brought you joy no longer bring you joy. And it's annoying, isn't it? Because, as human beings, this is, I call it the hobbit part of us, the hobbits, like the hobbits in Lord of the Rings, just want to live a good life, raise the children, grow the veggies, have a festival whenever there's a birthday, eat, drink and be merry kind of thing. Sometimes, I wish I could have that kind of a life. I crave that stability. I crave things to just be simple and easy. But it's not what I've chosen on my life path, and it probably isn't what you've chosen either if you're tuning into this video. You're probably attracted to this video because I speak always about growth, about spiritual growth and soul growth, and I feel like a lot of us signed up for this experience on planet Earth right now so that we could push ourselves and grow. There's other reasons for it as well, which I won't go into right now, but from a personal perspective, your evolution might be happening very fast in this lifetime. You might be going through many, many lives, it feels like, many, many changes. And every time you go through that cycle of evolution, you're going to experience discomfort. You're going to experience dissatisfaction with what you've already got, that maybe you worked very hard to get, you're going to experience confusion about, because that if you're dissatisfied with what you've got, then the next thought is, well, Why did I create it in the first place? What beliefs drove me? What motivated me? What was I thinking? You know? And then on top of that, you might have to deal with, you know, mental health challenges. So very negative inner critical self-talk, and just a whole questioning of who am I? Who am I really? You know, it's very disturbing to have your belief systems shaken up. To think that maybe you were wrong all along, or you know, it can be dramatic. It can be dramatic. Psychosis certainly is. Psychosis is, I believe, when we actually can't hold the tension of conflicting beliefs anymore. So the mind kind of snaps as a way to relieve that pressure. That's one explanation for it. Of course, like everything, it is multi-layered, and there's many things going on the different levels when you're going through a psychosis, and it has so many gifts as well, which, you know, people sometimes get cranky with me online comments and stuff about that, because they are finding it such a dark, horrific experience, and I honor that. You know, I have been there. I know how dark and horrific it can be. But I learnt to trust everything, which is what gave me the perspective to know deep down that there was going to be gold in this, there was going to be a gift in this. So I allow myself to dissolve, and in the dissolving I emerged as a new person, a better person, a whole person. And now I think I'm entering another phase of dissolving. And I hope it's not going to be as dramatic as the psychosis. You know, I don't wish that on anyone. But there's a mission to be accomplished here, a destiny for me to fulfill. I don't exactly know what that looks like. I have to trust, I have to surrender, and I have to realize that these signs of discomfort are actually just signs from my spirit that it's time to move again, it's time to change again, it's time to let some stuff go and make room for new. And then in that process, ego just has to step aside and say, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I believe at the moment. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know anything. So it's challenging, huh? Very challenging. Alright, that's probably enough on the topic. I just wanted to share that to let you all know where I'm at, and hopefully something of that resonates with your journey right now as well. I have made a little list of different videos I'm hoping to make at the moment, because I've really been missing this process of talking to the universe in this way. So I'll hopefully be back soon, but I'm not going to promise anything, because Great Spirit might have other ideas. So yeah, I thank you very much for your time and attention, and I'm sending you blessings wherever you are. Namaste.